Okay, so we are now going to hear our president, Walter Saul's composition, I Am the Resurrection, which is written for SATB choir, four trumpets, and an organ. And Walter, what can you tell us about that piece or anything else you would like to tell us, particularly about Easter?
Well, Easter, of course, is the apex of the church year for a very good reason. And I bemoan that oftentimes at Easter we have to be content with music that's just kind of happy, doesn't really go into depth about the resurrection. And I also miss music these days that actually sets God's word. And some of those ideals I try to fulfill myself in the anthem, I Am the Resurrection. Um, the anthem um has lots of opportunities that I'm proud to say I availed myself of for surprises, some distances, and challenges because Easter, after all, the first Easter was not a happy time. It was a time of great fear, wondering. It was a time of shock. It was a time of real terror, if you think about it. I would not have wanted to be one of the Roman guards at Easter time, who actually confronted probably, uh, to his face, the angels coming down, rolling away the stone, and a man who really was dead is really alive. I don't think that sinks in very much. And so I wanted to express the shock that Easter is. I actually find that that's a recurring theme in my music. I just finished my second symphony on the first day of the week, and it too is about Easter. And it has 12-tone music in the first movement because the first movement is simply entitled Open. What moved the rock? Uh, how did Jesus actually manage to come out of that borrowed tomb? And it really is the event that turns the world upside down. I wanted to recapture that kind of thing. Now, what's interesting about this anthem is that it's not from the gospel story of the resurrection. It is actually from what I would call the hinges of John's gospel. It's right in the 11th chapter at the moment just before Lazarus is going to be raised from the dead in a miniature foreshadowing of what will happen in chapter 21, just 10 chapters later. So I wanted to capture that. I thought four trumpets would help quite a bit, and I think it did. I also wanted to capture maybe the shock I think Martha must have felt when Jesus completely dispels the notion of all of this being somewhere in the by and by and says he is the resurrection and the life, and that is true right now. And so I felt like we needed a very powerful organ, powerful trumpets. Oftentimes we simply need to put the choir in unison in order for them to make this amazing proclamation. And in the book of Revelation, the first chapter, Jesus' voice is described as the sound of a trumpet. He his voice has many, if I remember correctly, sounds in many different dramatic ways, and so it's perfectly appropriate to have a choir sing the words that Jesus spoke to Martha
Yes,
back in John 11.
it is.
And I think it's pretty clear to many people who know me, especially in CFAMC, that I love cannons, fugues, and other counterpoint. Imitation is where it's at. I love the idea of starting with the trumpets and imitation and essentially building a cathedral of sound to build up to what must be an epical moment in Martha's life, and I think later in the life of everyone who witnesses Lazarus coming out of the tomb. And so that's what happens at the beginning. It's kind of built on what we might call D Dorian. And like many of us, I love the old church modes. D Dorian is interesting because it's all white notes. It is a totally symmetrical scale. It has a minor tetrachord on the bottom, has a minor tetrachord on the top, and each of those tetrachords is symmetrical, two whole steps surrounding a half step. And there's a nobility, I think, in Dorian mode that is captured here that gives kind of a sense of the Ancient of Days, if you will, the one who has been here forever and who will be here forever. So I try to capture that, and the proclamations of I am the resurrection, I try to keep that very simple and straightforward, but with plenty of heralding. Now, the organ, in the meantime, does not stay strictly in the Dorian mode. That will be quite clear. Um, I have on purposes. They're not accidentals. They're on purposes. So the purpose is to give a sense of how Jesus is Lord, not just of our world, but of the entire universe. We try to use the entire stretches of tonality and just collected tones themselves to portray Jesus' majesty and power over everything that there is. I do the typical word painting. Though he die, the music seems to die. But yet shall he live. Um, I indulge in a couple more tone clusters just in case the organ hadn't given us enough. And then, of course, the rather dramatic word painting of the word live right after that. And then it shifts to A flat Dorian mode so that we've gone a tritone away, which is really the entire expanse. It's our tonal universe to modulate a tritone away because that's as far away as we can get from another key. And so the whole idea is, again, to try to depict how large Jesus is, how great he is. I'm hoping it comes off as this huge cathedral of sound. I love to see it and hear it performed in the cathedral for that various reasons. Uh, so that is a two-part piece. Um, One part is Jesus' proclamation to Martha. I don't see how she could even stand to be up for that. I don't know what I would have done were I in Martha's shoes at that very moment. But Martha simply replies, yes, Lord, I believe you are the Christ, the Son of God who is to come into the world. Simple faith. You know, I kind of get upset sometimes because we talk so much about Mary's faith. Jesus, even in one place, compares Martha unfavorably to Mary because Martha's the worker, she's the hostess, and Mary's content to sit at Jesus' feet. And I want to be like Mary when I grow up, as much as I like to be like Martha. But Martha here simply assents, simply says that. And so you will notice at that point, I actually become quite tonal. We go to D major, and this is a fugue. It's a full-fledged fugue that just first the altos say that in the low women's voice to uh, word paint to depict Martha simply saying after she comes out of this wonderful confrontation with all goodness in the universe, she simply worships. And fortunately, she's joined by others. And the fugue is such a wonderful way to build to a climax and the paean of praise that I want to depict. I saved the sopranos for last because I want the music to drive upward to heaven as all the voices are finally introduced. And when I finally have brought all the voices in, the fugue subject is long on purpose. We need time. We need time to process this amazing thing that has just taken place. And it's only after everyone has come in that the trumpets get to give their assent to the glory that is on the earth in front of us right now. It's not in heaven, although it probably was as well, but it's on earth, intimately close to us. And so the fugue is the second part. And basically, if there's a third part, it would come after the fugue toward the end, where the subject of the fugue is sung by the sopranos in augmentation, and that's a very dramatic re-entrance of the organ with the four trumpets again, and the huge scales that are always ascending. And the whole thrust of this PS, if you will, is to again glorify God and to end up on what I think is a wonderful major triad, made more wonderful by the fact that we've gone through some dissonance and some very challenging moments of music making to get there.
Thank you, Walter, for explaining that piece. And now we're going to hear it and then discuss the piece with the people who are here today. So God bless you, and it's nice to see you. And maybe next year we'll get to hear your orchestral piece you described earlier about the resurrection.
It's fascinating. I just got commissioned to write yet another orchestral piece. It was 22 years in the making, but I'm actually have been commissioned by our local orchestra to write a new piece for them.
Wonderful.
So I don't know which one will get performed first,
Oh,
but I'd love to have everyone pray for a performance of on the first day of the week. The symphony is now finally ready. And I want to take this moment to welcome all of us to the listening room. I want to thank you, Bill, so much, so faithful to put on these presentations and in this wonderful way to get our music into circulation and to enable others to enjoy it. I greet everybody with the best wishes for a glorious Easter season. I can say that because Easter started last Sunday. But for us, those of us who are liturgically minded, we know it will go on until the day of Pentecost. And in any case, it's something that, as someone has once said, every morning is Easter morning.